You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we're going to be talking about the new T20 champions of the world. Australia, they did it. They overcame the Black Caps in the finals. Everyone's favourite second place team. Do it again. And Australia, Ross, I'm sure you'll be thrilled to hear this. Ross, not Max, by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, have pulled it off. We're going to start the show. I'm Jack, by the way. I'm Jack. That is Ross. We're going to start the show a little differently today, Ross. We got some hate mail about our last. We got some hate mail. Nothing specific. I'm not going to name and shame any of the Twitter trolls out there. But there were some people who felt that we did not give fair coverage to the Australian side in the semi-final. They actually said, people went as far as to say that you, Ross, and Dan were a little bit salty. I'm making a roast dinner this evening and I've got some potatoes here. They need some salt. So can you quickly... This is a visual joke. It's not going to work for the thousands of people that only watch this, only listen to this on Spotify or whatever. Can you put some salt on these potatoes? Just get it out the way early so that we can get on with a proper podcast where we give the new champions of the world the proper credit they deserve.
Hey, like every chef knows, Jack, you can't just go full salt straight away. You've got it's gradual seasoning over a period of time to really get those potatoes perfected. So we'll dash it throughout the show.
Okay, all right. Well swerved. Before we get going, do you have any messages for the listeners? Amit is worried about your mental health after Australia winning. Can you at least reassure us that you will survive the podcast?
Yeah, I'm sure I'll survive. It's one of those things, right? I just have a little bit of a curse. Any team that I like seems to do badly, and unfortunately, any team I dislike seems to do well. So that's just life. Anyway, the key messages are we are sponsored by Woodstock Cricket. Use code TCP25 for 25% off. Perfect time to buy yourself a cricket bat because Christmas is coming up, and get your parents to do it, get your family to do it, whatever.
Winter nets.
Go to their website. Winter nets, exactly. Yeah. They'll be starting soon. The cold, depressing bit of being completely out of form for the whole of the winter, and then turning up on a pudding as she's been bounced out in the nets every single day. But you should also like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And if you like what we're doing, which is also being a salty pom, then you should follow us and contribute to Patreon, where you get all kinds of benefits. You get loads of data, and we'll be here for the Ashes. So enjoy those salty tears.
Yeah. If you are Australian, there's a 5-0 coming up for you to get on board with. We'll probably try and do daily pods. It'll be early in the morning for us. I'm not saying we'll watch all the cricket. Let's just be clear about that now. But we'll try. We'll try and do a lot of podcasts, and they'll mainly be sad. I reckon there'll be one Joe Root century to give us hope in like the 4th test, and then they will collapse on the final day. Anyway, Ross, do you have a summary of today's cricket?
No, everyone's just watched the World Cup final, haven't they? I can give you one off the top of my head anyway.
Yeah, go on. It's key points.
Yeah, Australia won the toss, and as we know in the UAE, that counts as a significant amount. Won the game. Might as well have given them the trophy then. All of New Zealand's approach to actually winning this game was pretty much they could only win by chasing here, and unfortunately they let that seep into their mentality when it came to batting, as they were pedestrian through the power play, pedestrian up to over the 10th over, and then Kane Williamson was just like, oh no, we're not playing ODI cricket, we're playing T20, and fortunately for them, he got going, but no one else around him did. And I thought that the Australian bowlers bowled really well, particularly Hazlewood, particularly Zampa. Stark was on the receiving end of a bit of a blitzkrieg.
Bit of tap.
It was. I thought it was pretty bold. Final over comes up. Stark is 0 for 50 after 3 overs. Is like have the last one as well.
Good final over though. Only went for 10.
Yeah. Not too bad really. But the score they got on what was a pretty flat deck. It seems always a little bit too short. And when David Warner, the bull is back, came out. It looked like a different pitch, and then Aaron Finch was always going to get out early. There was never any doubt in anyone's head He's not a big game player. He's one of those.
He's not really a player, is he?
He's a specialist captain, just like Dhoni, just like Morgan. Everyone's morphing into that role.
Everyone says for us that Australia, they don't play the modern game. Tell that to Aaron Finch, specialist captain. Yeah. He's at the fucking forefront of doing nothing as a captain.
And that's what a leader does, right? Everyone knows modern day leadership is about inverting the pyramid. He should be at the top. Actually, he's put himself at the bottom to go.
Servant leader.
Yeah, he's a servant leader. That's exactly what he is.
I will serve you by being out.
Yeah, he gave the platform to Mitch Marsh. I'm glad Steve Smith didn't hit the fucking winning runs. I'll tell you that for free. But fair play to Mitchell Marsh with an unbelievable innings from Mitch Marsh. The guy who, as Simon Dall kept on saying on comms, has been plagued with injury. Obviously, there's the Marsh dynasty in Australian cricket.
In Austria.
Is alive and well. In Austria, in Australian cricket is alive and well. And yeah, fair play to Glenn Maxwell as well, who played a nice little innings. But unfortunately for New Zealand, they just didn't seem to have an answer. Their spin bowlers regressed to the mean. We said that Sodhi and Santa were pretty bloody average. They turned up against England, didn't fucking turn up against Australia, did they? And that was it. That was it. So fair play to Australia. It was a drubbing. Like let's not go anywhere. There's no dew factor. There's no pitch factor. There's nothing here. Australia were head and shoulders above New Zealand. They absolutely pounded them.
I reckon that match was 39 overs long. I think for 34 of them, Australia were on top. I think there were 5 overs where Kane Williamson got going, and he hit. What did we do? We calculated this. He was 7 off 13, and then hit 70 off the next 29 balls or something like that. Or maybe a few more on to the end of that because he ended up in the 80s. That spell of the game, Williamson, that's the best anyone will bat. You don't see people bat better than that. It was outrageous. It was like one-handed hitting people into the stands. He got a couple of nice streaky edges in off Stark. Mm-hmm. That was awesome. Rest of the game though, Australia had him in their back pocket. They started up with Hazlewood. He was great. 4
overs, 3 for 16.
Yeah.
In a final, it's unbelievable.
Pretty good.
What do you reckon Hazlewood's going to bowl? I reckon he's going to bowl about 85 miles an hour, just back of a length. Should we try and do anything about it? Nah, just let it bowl there.
Well, yeah, they did, and he took advantage of that, didn't he? He taught them a lesson. Sometimes, if the other team's going to make it easy for you, then cash in. You can't blame Gary Lineker for scoring a tap-in, can you? You can't blame Hazlewood for banging it in back of a length and nibbling it around a little bit. Gets out Mitchell.
I love a 1980s England reference.
All right, you can't blame Michael Owen for streaking through on goal.
1990s reference, even better.
You can't blame Wayne Rooney for sitting in the hole, getting the ball and dictating play. You just can't. That's what he does.
No, this was Mark Viduka's day. I'll tell you that for free.
You can't blame the big man up front for bullying the centre back and getting a header. There was a load of references there. We've got. I know the audience demographic. It's about 30 and under. There's a lot of people stroking their chin right now.
Yeah, I reckon if we did a poll of do you know who Mark Viduka is, it's a pretty low percentage, that one. Should we start at the top? Let's
go through the key points of the game. I mean, Hazlewood, if we say he was the boss of the power play. New Zealand, they have a pretty terrible power play. I know they only lose 1 wicket, which gives them a chance to fight back later on, and we will get to that. But Hazlewood, hammering that back of the length area, gets Mitchell out, who's been decent in this tournament, taught England a lesson, and sets Australia up right away, doesn't he?
Yeah, he devolved back to Crabby, didn't he, old Mitchell? But what I didn't like was Guptill's approach here. Guptill played, I think it was in the first over, played 2 shots, went to the boundary, and I was like, Guptill's in here. Like this guy he's on it. Like Guptill could be really, really dangerous. And he just almost, I don't know, I'm not sure if it was the fact that he was getting tucked up or anything like that, but he hit 3 boundaries in 35 balls. 2 of those came off his first 4 balls that he faced. And I just didn't understand that whole approach. Like, yes, I see that you lose Darryl Mitchell early, but Kane Williamson's your guy to protect the other end and make sure that you kind of get through, and he's the glue in the innings if you're going to play that anchor role. Guptill with, I don't know what he was doing. It was like this was a ball eater innings, like up till 8 balls. And if there's going to be someone in that power play to go, what were you doing here in the first 10 overs, really? Like, he was a big old culprit, unfortunately, of a pretty poor performance.
Yeah, he didn't have a good day out, did he?
But there was some good bowling to go with that. As you say, like Hazlewood had his number, right? Hazlewood was on it from ball 1.
Well, if we want to talk specifically about what went wrong here, and I've just clicked onto the scorecard, and if you go over to Google, actually, I don't know if you're listening to this in a couple of days' time, this might not be the case, but you get fireworks. They come up to celebrate, not in the colours of Australia. It would have been nice if Google had, done yellow and gold, gold and green fireworks for Australia, but they come up in all different colours. But nice touch, Google. Well done, Alphabet. If we want to talk
to our sponsorship,
yes, yeah. The cricket pod at gmail.com if you want to get in touch about commercial opportunities. If we want to talk
more hate mail.
If you want to talk specifically about what they did wrong, the Kiwis here, Hazlewood, as we've both sort of alluded to here, he's Michael Owen in the 90s, he's Wayne Rooney in the 2000s, he's Lineker in the 80s. They does one thing exceptionally well, and that's bowl a test match line and length. Now with this white ball, that works for a couple of overs. You have to give Hazlewood his due there. That's always going to be tricky. We see bowlers, Southey's done it for the Kiwis in this tournament, Bolt's done it around the world. There's plenty. Wokes has been doing it for England. The way you have to play these guys is as that ball gets a bit softer, and it gets soft quickly, is you have to move your feet. You have to get them off their line. You either go way back and you pull and you cut, or you come down the wicket and you belt them back over their head. And they looked a little bit betwixt and between the Kiwis in this first 5 overs. And I think breaking it down into 5 over slots is probably a nice way of looking at this game, because it did. If we give them a score for each one, Australia went 1-0 up pretty quickly, because they're not taking on the guy who only does one thing. Now Hazlewood, he's very good at that one thing. Don't get me wrong, but it is only one thing. So I was a little bit disappointed. I mean, like, obviously, because we hate Australia so much, and we can't possibly countenance that a team who 2 hours before the game I said would win the game would win the game. Because we can't possibly countenance that, it's very difficult to give credit to Hazlewood, but he's good at that. But I did want, as a Kiwi fan for the day, as a temporary black cap, as an ex-black cap now, I suppose. I did want to see a little bit more from the Kiwis in that area, just to try and put Hazlewood under pressure, because we have seen it. Hazlewood, decent power play bowler. It gets worse as the game develops. He literally has a downward slope. It's almost linear. Very good first over, okay, decent second over. 5th over of the game, that you should be scoring runs off the 5th. If he's bowling the 5th over of the game, you should be scoring runs off that. And if he's bowling at the death, which he did, you should be scoring runs off that over, and they didn't. Yeah. Hazlewood's a big winner today. I mean, like, Australia are the big winner. But if we look at individual big winners, first name on the big winner team sheet is Hazlewood. He's had a cracking day out. He gets 3 of the top 4. Only thing he does wrong, maybe we'll get to that a little bit later, is drop Williamson when he was on 20. Which was
but that made the game better. That made the game better, didn't it, really?
Yeah.
He's just an entertainer, Hazlewood. That's what you want from a cricketer, right? Can we talk about Maxwell in the power play? Because you've got to talk about... You're talking about Hazlewood there. And if you're not scoring runs off one of those bowlers, you're just like, you know what, we've got to go at the other guy. When Aaron Finch goes, do you know what, we're going to bowl Glenn Maxwell in this power play, Mitchell from the first ball was just like, right, I'm going to go after this guy. Hit him for 6, and then again stopped. Like, it was you used the word betwixing. Like, it was a really strange approach. Like, if you're going to go after someone, continue to hammer it. Like Brendan McCullum's big thing in his autobiography, in his whole purpose around KKR, etc., is, if I've hit the next ball for 6, if I hit the first ball for 6, I'm not looking for a single off the next ball. I'm trying to hit him for 6 again. That is pretty much Brendan McCullum's mantra. He's still involved in New Zealand cricket. He built this team, and then Kane Williamson has taken it to that next level. So that culture still is embedded, and yet here it escapes them. It vanished into thin air.
Yeah, I think we're touching on a theme that I'm sure we'll revisit here, and we don't want to labour it too much. But the Kiwis quite a few points in their innings, even though they do end up with a decent score, didn't really put their foot down, it felt like. And I haven't got the I don't know if you've got it to hand, the end power play score. Was it 32 or something like that, or 36? 34? No, I think I want to say 34. I think there were 2 off the final over of the power play. That's shit. Let's just call it what it is. That's a combination of Hazlewood having a very good day, but also some very average batting from Guptill, from Mitchell to some extent. I mean, he gets it out and so on. And Williamson, the last over, who blocks 5 balls. I mean, it was like, what? But strange.
He never had the support. And that's it. Like, Williamson had to go for it, right? Williamson hit 13 boundaries himself, and as you said, like, hit 70 off of like 29 balls, whatever it was. But he never had the support at the other end. It was always, like, I can always imagine, like, yes, you get the good batsman on strike, you get the guys hitting on strike. But Glenn Phillips comes in. Glenn Phillips, and we were texting while we was going. You were just like, I was like, this guy's not at the races here. And he was like, he's at the most international T20 sixes this year. So fucking what? He literally hit 1 today. It was 18 of 17 balls after Guptill's innings. Oh, after Guptill plays that innings, no one is allowed to play like that.
No, I get what you're saying. Yeah, and you're right. You're right. If you're Glenn Phillips, you've hit 96 sixes this year. Why don't you hit 4 more, make it an even 100 in the final? Or why don't you at least try and do that? It's very hard, for him though. I don't really blame him here. I think if you're gonna assign blame, which is what we do on this podcast, Guptill is the main culprit. It's very hard to go from ball one. Do you want to talk? They end up in a dire situation, don't they? And then Williamson goes ballistic. Do you want to talk about that really quickly? Because I just have to answer the door.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think if we look at what Kane Williamson was actually doing, you saw in that game where there's been a big thing around anchor players over the last kind of couple of years and how they adapt to different kind of situations. And Kane Williamson has been one of those people who's realised that you adapt or die in this whole situation. And you see his kind of scoring shots around T20 cricket. You see that the laps he plays off his legs, did it at Hazlewood today for a boundary. And you see like he tries to find where he's strong. And like he's a technically very gifted player. He doesn't really go too far away from that. I mean, he hit a one-handed 6 today, but even then, like you see, his position's in the right place. He's not slogging the ball, kind of thing. And Kane Williamson's just one of those guys who this was a supreme innings from him today. This was a captain going, do you know what? I need to stand up for my country here. I need to stand up for my team. I need to do this. And it's an absolutely brilliant innings. But it shows you that cricket, I think even Kane Williamson, this is one of Kane Williamson's quotes from what I was reading the other day, said that T20 cricket is the closest format in cricket that is a team game. It's far more of a team game than ODI cricket is or Test cricket is. Like a good innings and a selfish innings in T20 actually can be detrimental to the side, as we've seen by KL Rahul, Virat Kohli, all the guys we talk about in the IPL. But Kane Williamson did not do that today. He adapted brilliantly, and he led from the front.
Yeah, he did. The only thing I would say, and I was watching this, and I sort of wondered whether this would be the case. When you see one of these, in quotes, anchor type batters tee off and score so easily, sometimes I think that's a massive indicator that this should be a really high scoring game. Because if guys like that are able to time their way to 85 or 48, strike rate of 177, not really hit their way, time their way to that, what is a guy who's trying to hit their way to 85 or 48 going to do? And not to foreshadow too much, but that's effectively what Mitch Marsh does, isn't it? It's slightly slower, and but he does slow down towards the end, Mitch Marsh, because he realises he can be the glory boy, which is perfectly acceptable. What I'd have done.
He was on 300. He was a striker at 300 for like a quarter of his innings.
Yeah, but it shows. No, Mitch Marsh and Kane Williamson side by side. You've got a Rolls Royce, Kane Williamson, and you've got like I don't know what it would be.
A John Deere tractor.
It's a John Deere tractor. He's
a high quality player. Like you've got a high quality machine there. He's not luxury.
Not luxury. He'll mow you down.
Yeah. We'll mow you down. He's ploughing you.
but you don't want to show him off to your girlfriend, do you? That's a very 70s.
Oh, boyfriend, Jack, come on. Let's...
You know, men and cars. That's what we're talking here. Men and cars. Williamson, Rolls Royce. What I'm saying is that when you put your Rolls Royce in the field and you use it as a combine harvester and it does an effective job, you do sometimes think, what happens if we had the right tool for the job here? And I did wonder, not to take anything away from Williamson's innings, which saves the whole game. You know, it would have been a disaster if he'd got out when he was set on 7 off 13 balls. Because I don't think this New Zealand side, I don't think that they have a lot left in the tank. Carry on.
Do you know who's really to blame for this whole thing? And I know, it's not actually a player who's playing today. It's actually Liam Livingstone. If Liam Livingstone doesn't get Devon Conway out, they've got another luxury car in their lineup. But then him getting him out and Devon Conway for some reason punching his cricket bat, breaking his hand. What are you doing? He's sitting there now, all strapped up. You're just, oh my god! Imagine how bad he feels right now. Like Tim Seifert coming into this lineup, and them having to bump Clem Phillips up, bump everyone else up. If they had Devon Conway in that side today, you've got another person who knows how to properly bat. And I think today it was a huge loss. Not saying it's going to change the course of the game, but not having Devon Conway available to them today was a massive loss.
Right, so that's Williamson does really well. They get into a really good position, the Kiwis. They're up to 140-ish with 3-4 overs to go. And then Australia, they fight back pretty hard. I can't remember. I wrote the figure down, but on a piece of paper in the other room. It was like 44 off the last 5 overs or something like that. Which, you know, considering Stark's going around the park, we can go back and talk about him if you want to, but that's an absolute shocker for a final, isn't it? No wickets, 60 runs.
15 and over. Thanks for coming, Stark. Honestly,
I reckon I could have done that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. That's astonishingly bad. But near the end, you know, Hazlewood comes in. Cummins has a good day out. They do come back into the game pretty strong. I was impressed with the Australian death bowling.
Yeah, I agree, and I thought they brought it back really well. I thought for Aaron Finch also to have the balls to give the last over to Stark as well. Thought that was pretty good, but that's their plan, right? They are. They've got their approach. They're going to stick to their approach. Their approach has ended up winning the World Cup unbelievably, regardless of the journey that they took to get here. And this was a big performance from them. And I thought that Pat Cummins probably goes under the radar in this. I know it sounds ridiculous. Pat Cummins is kind of one of the most expensive IPL players of all time. And with the elite test bowler in the world at the moment, he kind of goes under the radar. But Cumdog did really well today. He executed his plans. Didn't go for many runs. And again, it just comes back to that piece around that talent and that class that they have available to them. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Stark went around the park, but others, Hazlewood and Cummins coming off, it's a great asset to have for Australia.
Yeah. They were good. There's one more person I want to talk about. Before we do, if you're watching the live stream, hit like, hit subscribe, say hello to us. Amit says, how drunk is Jack? Actually, this is my first beer. I've just got quite a bad cold, so I probably sound really weird. So, I don't know. That drunk, Amit. Yeah, there's not. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. We're on the road to 10k. We've really enjoyed the tournament. We've really enjoyed sharing it with you. Support the show, support the podcast. Send us a super chat. Give us all your money now. God damn, we were so close to a good plug. The other player, and I did a thread of tweets for this match. I laid my cards on the table because I wanted to talk about this later, and I didn't want it to sound like I was changing my tune. I thought Australia were going to win this game at 12 o'clock, and I thought there were 3 reasons for that. And we can get into the other 2 reasons a bit later. I said team setup. I said power. I said the Australian batters had too much power for the Kiwis. And I said Adam Zampa was a much better bowler than Ish Sodhi. And I'm glad that Zamps has come through for me here. 4 overs, 26 for 1. And he actually gets a bit of punishment. He gets a bit of punishment in the final over. Wasn't that the one-handed 6 that Williamson hits? I think maybe he hit another 6 in that over. Adam Zampa, you got to salute that. He has been an absolute boss for Australia in this tournament. I think he's gone at under a runner ball, picked up 13 wickets, which I think is at least the best of the players that played the Super 12s. Picked up a fifer, didn't he? Matt Wade dropped his hat-trick ball. Adam Zampa, I'm going to put this to you, Ross. Top 3 leg spinners in the world.
Okay, so you got Rashid Khan at the top.
Yeah. I'm saying Hasaranga, not necessarily just because of the bowling. Hasaranga can bat as well, and that makes him super valuable. I think bowling-wise, Zampa might be better than Hasaranga. I think he's had an absolute boss tournament. He's getting better and better and better. I've really enjoyed watching him bowl. And I think he has been a huge reason and a slightly forgotten reason about why this Australian team have actually managed to pull off what is, let's be honest here, a bit of an outsider's victory.
Yeah, well, just when England pumped them, we bowled it out for 125, and they were still picking Ashton Agar. They were picking Ashton Agar.
We came in for one game before caveman Marsh came back.
Yeah, and it was just like that bit. Imagine if they would have picked Marsh to play against England. What could have happened? Marsh always hits runs against England. Oh yeah, he always hits runs. There's that bit, right? Actually, trusting a spinner and he's got a specific role in this side. They don't really completely differently, right? They know when he bowls. They know what they're going to get from him, and he's pretty consistent. I do really enjoy the fact that people realise he's 29. Like, people look at him and they think he's about 23, and it's just like, oh, this guy hasn't been around that long. Like, Zampa knows his trade really quite well, and I thought, as I said, I agree with you. I think I was been very impressed with him throughout the tournament. But Australia just had that. I think they had that setup, and regardless of if it's data driven, it's not data driven, they're backing talent, and they've got that conservative approach with a couple of wild cards. Here they had 8 or 9 batsmen, and then they had 6 bowling options, 4 of which are going to give you probably 14 good overs out of their 16 that you can trust. That's a strong base to work with.
Yeah, they have got a strong base to work with, and I think we'll maybe talk a little bit more about Australia and what they learned in this tournament and why they managed to win it in a bit. But yeah, I just wanted to take some time out to have Adam Zampa Corner on the podcast. Maybe we should just roll this through.
We're all going to grow mullets. You could actually do a mullet. You could actually do an Adam Zampa mullet. I don't have the wherewithal at the back, I'm afraid.
And what's mine? I can't see the back of my head.
Oh no! I think you've a couple of months, maybe for the Ashes, we will become Adam Zampa stands.
If England win the Ashes, I will get a mullet. That's how confident I am that England will lose the Ashes. But yeah, no, he's been great. I mean, he looks like a meth addict. He looks like a 23-year-old.
Fair. You can't say that. You can't.
He doesn't look like he has the haircut. Sorry, of a meth addict. Right. He doesn't look like he looks like a schoolboy who's had the hair of a meth addict transplanted onto their head. Hasn't look, as far as I know, he's never taken any meth. Probably hasn't. And he's good at bowling. Top 3 in the world, as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
I think,
We're addicted to Zampa. That's what we are.
We're addicted to Zampa.
We're Zampa addicts. That's what we are.
Great. He's had a great tournament, and I reckon we'll see a few more years of him. Leg spinners, once they get their groove, it's like they seem to find it a bit later than other players. It seems to be something that you don't fully develop as until you're in your late 20s. But then you've got a good 5-10 year career ahead of you, I reckon. If you look at, I don't know, all the old leg spinners around. Imran Tahir. He's an old leg spinner, isn't he? Yeah. So let's just use Imran Tahir. He's probably going to have Imran Tahir's career from now on.
And I can see him taking up. I can see him taking up the mantra as well, like the long hair. I can see it. I can really see it.
Great. At the halfway stage, New Zealand end on 172 for 4. Did you think at the time 172 was a good score?
I thought it was okay. Conceding that they were absolutely nowhere after 11 overs. I thought it was a brilliant score for them. They salvaged where they were. But as you say, the fact that Williamson had plundered it everywhere and some of the other batsmen couldn't really even hit it off the square was a little bit worrying for them. Especially as Warner seems to be kind of back in form. We know the likes of Mitch Marsh are good on this. They pretty much played it was almost like an Australian deck today. That's the kind of, when I was watching it, it was kind of that bit. It was like sitting up quite nicely. There was certain lengths to bowl, but actually this was a kind of deck that these Aussie batters had played on their whole life. And it was a bit like, there was a good advantage for them. And they had just a bit more a bit more about them in that lineup. Even like being able to back Stoinis and Wade after the semi-final, like the confidence was sky high at this batting side, and being able to chase in the UAE, especially when the big danger for Australia was Sodhi and Santner being able to bowl as they want to bowl and tie those ends up and really put the pressure on in terms of reducing how many runs they were hitting. Here, dew factor, pressure, whatever, that just didn't happen. And they bossed it. They bossed it. It was a brilliant run chase.
Yeah, I thought 172 was about average. I thought that set up a pretty 50-50 game. I think, like you're sort of talking there, the Kiwis really needed more than one wicket in the power play. Like it's. I actually, right, of the two spinners you've called out there, Santner and Sodhi, I think Santner's fine. Santner is an absolutely fine control left arm spinner. He's never going to take any wickets though. He's the guy who you throw the ball to when the other team's under a little bit of pressure, and you're like, give me 3 overs that go for 20. You know, just tie this up, 6.5 and over, ramp up the pressure, and then we'll go back to Adam Milne a bit later on. And when they need to score runs, we'll use our best death bowler to make it difficult for them. And I don't think New Zealand ever found themselves in that position. Now, why didn't they find themselves in that position? It's because the bull is back, Ross.
It's because Australia batted like England.
No, it's all Warner, and I want to hear you say it. Dave Warner.
The bull is back.
The bull is back. The top T20 opener of all time. And, well, Chris Gale might have a word or two to say about that. But he's in the conversation. No, it was a good innings for him, wasn't it? 53 from 38, 3 sixes, 4 fours. Job done.
Well, it was kind of one of those things. He was struggling, I think it was 25 of 25, and then kind of started to find the boundaries, etc. But again, it was that tempo that he sets. And I was listening to... I was listening to Jared Kimber speak with Tim Wigmore on one of the Red Inca podcasts the other day, and it was talking about kind of David Warner's his whole approach was around it. He can score 2s and 3s, and he's really, really quick between the wickets and sets that tempo for the team. Here, he was the energy. He was that guy who was trying to do that, was trying to get it. And we know in T20 cricket it's about hitting boundaries. But actually, in this regard, he was just getting Mitch Marsh on strike. Mitch Marsh twatted Adam Milne for 6 off the first ball. It was a terrible delivery, and he literally just pumped him. And he was from that moment, Mitch Marsh was just like, "This is my day." And he had 2 back-to-back 4s on that one. And he was just they'd won it in the second over or third over, and Mitch Marsh was just like, "Yeah, I'm going to club you, your 90-mile-an-hour bowler. See you later."
He was after work sometimes, Ross. I play mixed sex slow pitch amateur softball in Regent's Park.
That's something to really boost your confidence, isn't it, mate?
Yeah. I'm amazing. Trust me. Trust me. Homer after homer. I take all sorts of catches. I'm like the Ted Williams crossed with Babe Ruth, crossed with Barry Bonds of mixed sex slow pitch amateur softball charity league softball. In that, quite often, like part of my job is teaching people how to hold softball bat and what to do. And I tell them to club the seal, like pretend you're clubbing a seal to death, like try and hit the fucker as hard as possible. Hold it like you've got a seal club. That's Mitch Marsh for the bat. That's all I could think of. He's clubbing the seal. Surely, sometime, in the past, Rod Marsh, his dad, has taken him into the back garden. He's been trying to play the forward defensive.
Hey, come here, son.
and Rod's just been like, "Nah, mate, club the seal." That's all.
We got it here. You want a big grip round the bat. Picture the little seal's head and sweat it.
It was
other Australian accents are available, by the way. So apologies for those.
Yeah. We don't have Norcross available for this pod. He was too busy broadcasting today. But he's got the number 1 Australian. Max has pretty good accents. We'll get him on next time. But yeah, that's all I could sort of think of when I was watching this guy go about his business. But it was brutally effective, and going back to Kane Williamson, how easy he made it look. It was a deck that you could do that on. And Mitch Marsh knew that. And ball 1, he knew that. He was like, I don't care who you are, how well you've been bowling in this tournament, the 100, the blast. I don't care anything about your history. I'm a Marsh. I'm here. This is my moment. And
there was no danger, right? Mitch Marsh's big danger is when the ball is turning and he's a little bit sceptical around where it's bouncing.
Yeah.
Here, he was just like, actually, the ball's not turning that much. I think Santo maybe got 1 or 2 to turn, and that's when he properly floated up and he missed both of them. He tried to hit them both, missed both of them by a mile. But actually, bowled one on his pads, he just launched him into the third tier of the stadium.
So far.
Yeah,
I don't think. We'll do a summary of how good we think Australia are, because I do think we need to put this on record. And I don't think them winning the T20 World Cup makes them the best T20 team in the world, and I will explain why later. But I'll tell you what, I don't think there's anyone who hits the ball as hard as Marsh does, apart from maybe Liam Livingstone playing cricket at the moment. He's like a long drive champion when he unwinds the big one. He smokes that seal.
Yeah, there was one. I think he hit Adam Milne to the boundary on one, and it was one where he pitched it pretty halfway down, and he was through the shot already, and it's gone through kind of like mid wicket, mid on kind of thing, and it panned to the Australian kind of dugout, and I don't know who it was in the Australian dugout, but it was this grey haired guy, had a grey beard, and he literally just went like that. His face. It was like he'd just sucked up some vinegar in his nose. That's the kind of, for those listening on the podcast, his whole face. And it was because he absolutely hooned it to the boundary, and it was get out of the way big time on that one.
There was some proper hoons going on. Hooning is what was happening.
Mitch Marsh.
And then Australia won really easily. You know, Marsh, fantastic. Player of the game, maybe. Hazlewood or him, player of the game. I'm going to say Marsh, player of the game, because Hazlewood did drop Williamson. Hazlewood was both the best player of the first innings, from as far as Australia were concerned, and maybe the worst. You know? It was an
interesting approach, right? Because he never looked like he was going to catch it, and he got both hands to it. Like it wasn't.
Mitch Marsh, 77 off 50, 6 fours, 6 fours, 4 sixes. You know, that's a bit of a mind bender, that one. Great night for him. I felt really happy for him as well when he won. Like, sank to his knees. I thought he was going to cry. I don't think he cried. I think
Maxie was crying. I think Max had a little bit of a tear up.
Yeah. Yeah, Maxwell's like quite a softie though, isn't he? You know, everybody likes Maxwell. Nobody hates Maxwell. Mitch Marsh, he's a brawler.
Mitch Marsh came out on radio and said, "I feel like the majority of Australian cricket fans hate me." Like, he literally came out and said that in public. And this is like, he's gone from rock bottom to being like, Stoinis was talking about, no one other than the Marsh family loves this guy more than we've got great teamship. We do it for the baggy green. But it was a great performance, and just every single option that Kane had. Kane Williamson today must be inside being just like, what else can I do? Other than bowling himself, which he can't do because he's got a dodgy elbow and probably chucks it. There's a bit around like he must be maybe not feeling completely let down, but it was almost like New Zealand peaked at the semi-finals.
I think you're sort of right. I mean, I think there are a couple of reasons that New Zealand just aren't as good as this Australia side, and I think this Australia side did grow into the tournament as well. And I again, because I knew we got hate mail and I wanted to be clear about this, I wrote down the reasons I thought Australia were better than the Kiwis before the game and put it on my Twitter so that people could look at that and know now, when I'm saying that I thought Australia were going to win, that I thought Australia were going to win. I've planned this out. But yeah, anything else from this game that we want to talk about specifically before we do the more general stuff?
I think again, Maxwell in it. I think Maxwell again Maxwell. I think gets unfairly called out by some of the commentators and some of the pundits. And you talk about that everyone kind of loves Glenn Maxwell. Glenn Maxwell has that role where he has to live and die by the sword. And like sometimes when you live and die by the sword that way, you're going to get zeros. You're going to get no scores. He only hit a score over 18 in this World Cup. And people are just like, why is he, like, almost questioning why he's there? Like Glenn Maxwell today, like, came out and was just like, you know what, I'm going to be the perfect foil for Mitch Marsh. And we're going to do that. And I love the fact they were both racing to hit the winning runs. There was a bit that's like, I want to be that moment. I want to be that moment in history where I'm the guy hitting it. And then trademark Glenn Maxwell kind of shifts his hands over and does a little switch hit for 4 to win the game. So, yeah, well done, Maxie.
Yeah, Maxie, well done. I do think Forgotten Heroes. Trent Boult, 4 overs, 18 runs, 2 wickets. He could not have done more to try and help the Kiwis. I think at the end of his third over, he'd gone for 8 runs. It was just
he was bowling at times he doesn't normally bowl at as well. It's just like, so can anyone here bowl? And he's just like, yeah, I can probably give it a go. Ish Sodhi, literally regressing to the mean completely in this game, where we sort of said average bowler, had a couple of good games, but oh my God, 3 overs, 0 for 40, his stint. Not a good day at the office. Was disappointed not to see Glenn Phillips given a go. They gave it to Jimmy Neesham instead.
Well, yeah. I mean, we'll talk about this in a second. Yeah, Trent Boult though, I think at one point he bowled 3 of the overs. In the 12th over, he bowled 3 of the overs. He got Warner out in the 12th over. Australia were on 107. They had scored 8 runs off Boult. The rest of the bowlers have gone for 99 off 9 overs. Yeah. So well done, Trent Boult, with your quiff.
With the quiff.
Okay,
well, it was a fantastic win for Australia. They completely outplayed them. I think in the chat people were kind of talking about how there's just that Australian resilience. Sometimes they know how to win a final, but today they just battered New Zealand completely. Yeah.
Final few points or other points. Probably more generally about Australia. I said before the game, just to go back to the points I made, I said that Australia had a better setup, and we talked briefly about this. I've said this a few times on the podcast as well. I think that Australia, with their 8 or 9 batters and their 4 frontline bowlers, and then Maxwell, Stoinis, and Marsh making up the final 4 overs, is actually a decent formula. You know, if you're not going to have, if you're not going to have a team of elite hitters, they've got one. They've got Maxwell and maybe Warner. Maybe the ball's back. They've got 2 hitters.
Hey, yeah. Well, Mitch Marsh is going at 130 over his career.
Mitch Marsh is now great again. Yeah, okay. Or great for the first time. You might as well have 7 of them. And Matt Wade at 7 is a decent option. And I think Australia, that's a point.
Oh, come on, Matt. It's just one good game. Matt Wade is not even a good wicket keeper. He gets one lucky performance.
At number 7, your options, Ross, for this game are Matthew Wade or
Ashton Agar.
Santner. No, I'm not. I'm just comparing. Santner. Who do you want? Do you want Santner or Wade coming in at 7?
Yeah, you want Wade coming in at 7 because he's a batsman.
Okay. Who do they play in the semis? Pakistan.
Yeah.
Was it Hassan Ali slated to come in at 7? No, Hassan Ali's okay, but Matt Wade is better.
Yeah, I suppose him. But I'm in the Dan Western school. Josh, he's going to be spewing right now because old Josh English isn't there.
Well, he might be, but I think Australia absolutely nailed that. The second battle, I thought Sodhi v Zampa. Zampa, I genuinely think, you never answer this, is he in the top 3 leg spinners in the world? T20 leg spinners in the world?
I think he's in the top 5 because I think things fluctuate. Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty good. Where's Sodhi? Top 25?
Yeah, top 25, yeah.
I saw Sodhi's played in the IPL in the last 3 years. I cannot believe that.
It wasn't like a bowling coach. It was a bowling coach for Rajasthan Royals.
Well... Yeah.
Which shows you all you need to know because he didn't bowl fucking Livingston, did he? So he was just like, Glenn Phillips is a better spin bowler.
I don't really see. So Sodhi over the last 3 years has an economy over 8. He's a spinner. He has an economy over 8 in T20 cricket. That's appalling.
But he bowled well against England, right? Like sometimes it works out. They got Butler out. He bowled really, really well in the semi-final.
And this is the other area where I think we have to hold our hands up and say we maybe didn't give Australia enough credit. They're actually an okay hitting side, and we saw it again today. They chased out a big score with relative ease. We didn't expect. Let's be honest. We didn't expect Warner to come back and be good. We expected him to basically have the tournament that Finch is having. We thought that would be the combination. It'd be Finch and Finch in the batting. Finch and Warner, some kind of 18th century Taylor. But they were good. Marsh has had a pretty good tournament. Steve Smith was and still remains a joke. But then you go down the order. Maxwell not had a great tournament, but he showed today he can hit. Wade can hit. Cummins came in. I think he's faced 4 balls for the tournament, hit 2 of them for 6. I think, Ross, that we maybe didn't give Australia enough credit with the bat.
I think sometimes I get a little bit blinded by Steve Smith. Steve Smith being in this T20 lineup just is frustrating for me because he's not a good anchor anyway. Like even if you were going to say that Virat Kohli's the elite anchor, Kane Williamson's in that bucket as well, like he's just not there. Like Steve Smith is not there. The fact that Australia set up and they've still won this, right? I mean, they shouldn't have got through because they played that bloody testimonial game against West Indies. South Africa, in my point of view, was that bit, but again, they beat South Africa. So, but this team, I think they had players on the bench that kind of make this team a little bit better, and maybe you'll see that next year. However,
probably won't.
But yeah, old Langer, who's not going to be around next year.
He might be now.
No, I don't think so. Surely not.
Hey, he's gonna win the Ashes 5-0, and they will not be able to give him. They won't be able to fire him. He'll be the T20 champion going into a home T20. They won't be able to fire him. He's going to be the Ashes.
He's there forever.
He's there forever. His job's for life for Langer.
To be fair, I think.
Although Ross, hold on. Jokes aside, Hayden does have coaching experience now, so maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
The old switcheroo.
But yeah, jokes aside, I just thought that with this side, Dave Warner was like woefully out of form. Aaron Finch couldn't particularly buy a run in white ball cricket anyway. Steve Smith, not an elite T20 player, is not a great anchor. Don't really see the point in having him in this side. Mitch Marsh has had a pretty good year, but has had a woeful record against spin. And playing in the UAE, you would have thought that spin would have come into it a little bit more, but he's done well. Matthew Wade, Glenn Maxwell. We know who Glenn Maxwell is. He is the standout T20 batsman in this side. Stoinis, like he said, he's a decent player. Like we like Stoinis on the show. He'd be great to have on the show. And then Matthew Wade,
I think he's like the unofficial third member of Guerrilla Cricket now. Grey cricketer.
Yeah. But I think like Matthew Wade, like they're different. Like Josh Inglis is a better option than Matthew Wade. However, he also came out and smashed Shaheen Afridi for 360. So fair play. Like there was justification in the criticism of this batting lineup for New Zealand. Of Australia, sorry. However, when you've got some elite, regardless if they play Test cricket, ODI cricket, like having Stark, Cummins, and Hazlewood's actually been good for them. Like they get to play we're going to play the 140 to 160 batting lottery, and we've got a team to chase down that score.
Well, they chased down 170 twice to make
fair play
to win the tournament. And so I think probably we were a bit harsh on the Australian batters. I do think, as you've run through there, that there was some justification for that harshness, and we also saw if you win every single toss and you bat second every single time in a tournament where batting second is a huge advantage, that's helpful. That can negate something. You can make bad decisions and get away with it. Even today, we saw quite a few examples. What did we see? We saw like three Kiwi chances where the player dived, got their hand on the ball, and two of them they actually held it. And it wasn't out, obviously, because it's bounced, but they're a foot away from hitting it down the guy's throat, or a foot away from it. Glenn Phillips, an amazing diving forward stop on the boundary. Mitchell follows it up a few overs later. Neesham had that one that he went for, and it went for 4. Sometimes they're out, and sometimes you lose the game because they're out. So there's fine margins. I would probably say, in hindsight, Ross, that Australia are third best T20 team in the world. I still don't think they're better than Pakistan. I know they beat Pakistan. I don't think they're better than Pakistan. They're clearly not better than England.
But that's the thing, right? In this, and that's why in American sports, when they have like the series at the end, right? It's out of 7. Like it doesn't come down to this kind of shootout when it is just like one game, and it can go any which way, right? The luck comes down, as you say, 1 yard either way, 1 yard further, 1 yard fewer. There is a piece of luck, but at the same time, you still have to go and win that game.
For sure, and hopefully the previous 35 minutes where we talked about why Australia won and how they were better than the Kiwis are evidence of us being unbiased, but they might not be. You might just listen to the last 2 minutes and conclude that we hate Australia. Which isn't actually true, but
we're cricket fans, mate. First and foremost,
cricket fans, mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I'm just looking in the chat, and obviously because of our audience, somehow they're talking about Virat Kohli in the chat, which it wouldn't be a cricket podcast without talking about Virat Kohli and him not being an elite T20 player. So I'm afraid those backing Kohli, he's just not an elite level T20 player anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. We had some questiones on our Patreon. Patreon, if you're a Patreon member, patreon.com/thecricketpod, you can ask a question and we will answer it. VJ asks one at half time, Ross. Was 172 enough? 10 runs short, perhaps.
Can I have your crystal ball?
Yeah, no, well played, VJ. Swami says, sorry, I'm getting quite blocked up now, so if I get more and more, what's
nasally,
nasal, I apologise. That's the way she goes. There's a turbo cold going round.
There is a turbo cold.
Yeah, it laid me out, like, genuinely, for 3 days. Like, I could not get out. The Thursday, I woke up, 8 o'clock, thought I could go to work, and I was just like, no, can't do it. I was awake for 1 minute, turned my alarm off, wake up at midday.
So you call it like a...
I went to bed at 10 as well. I slept for 14 hours. I felt terrible, but by that time I had so much sleep I just couldn't do anything. I was just lying there. And then on Friday, I went on a deer butchery course.
We've got way off piece here, mate. Way off piece. Let's come back to the cricket.
I was really ill at this deer butchery course, but I have got lots of venison I'm making a roast, so yeah.
There you go.
Venison roast, braised haunch of venison. Anyway, Swami, hey guys, question for the show today. This 2021 Warner, is this an even more dangerous version than earlier? He used to be someone who pretty much hit or at least tried to strike everything to the orbit. Now he seems to be someone who takes a calculated risk, more willing to play a ball on its merits and intent staying in the middle as long as possible. Well, I guess a rhetorical question. Are the SRH management stupid for not realising this?
I think, when it comes to form, like, you have to be able to cut people out of the team, right? You've got what? How many people in an IPL team? 25? Is it the roster team? Yeah. So they've got 25 people to choose from, and you've only got 4 overseas slots to play in. You have to take the tough decisions. SRH have consistently taken the wrong decisions over the last kind of couple of IPLs. You've seen with their completely abject performances. They were lucky to get through the end of last year. They had to do what they had to do. I'm not saying right or wrong, but if a person is averaging less than 15 with the bat opening up, and he's one of your overseas spots, you are going to drop him. I don't think it's unjustified.
And I think this is a really good point, and it goes back to some of the things we've been talking about with Warner. Genuinely, I think this is him raging against the dying of the light. I don't think Warner's back. I mean, we're saying Bull's back. I would be stunned if he replicated anything like this form in the IPL. There's no doubt whatsoever. We've watched them back to back. There is no doubt whatsoever that the quality of cricket being played at this World Cup is lower than the IPL. The bowlers aren't as good. The plans aren't as good. Warner's making hay, and he's batted really well in the circumstances. You can only beat who's in front of you, yeah. But I think you ratchet that up a little bit. You have some better plans. You put him out of his comfort zone slightly. I don't see him trashing the IPL and getting 800 runs at 150 next year. I think he'll get a huge contract, obviously, but I think we'll see something closer overall to old Warner. Well, not old Warner, like October Warner than November Warner.
Yeah, I think that's, but it also comes down to the environment that you're playing in, right? And sometimes, like franchise cricket, you've still got a bunch of individuals who are playing. Sometimes franchises treat people like family, and because it's a very close-knit group, and you see like CSK triumph and win or whatever, and it's under Dhoni's tutelage, etc. The Australian team have come out in the press. They were in the interviews talking about how their whole bit, they are looking forward to playing with the Australian guys. They are looking forward to being in that team. And when someone like Dave Warner or whoever, like it goes for any cricketer, when you know your value, you know your role, and you've got not a safety net per se, but you've got that security, I suppose is probably the word I'm looking for. That does a good thing for your confidence, right? Far differently to when you're playing for Sunrisers Hyderabad, who are shit, Let's not get it. And all the pressure is everyone's pointing the finger at you, going, "You're the problem." When it's not, it's actually the strategic setup of that whole franchise and their approach to cricket, etc. But that pressure, regardless if you are the bull or you are the second best T20 batsman of all time, like that is still a significant amount of pressure when you're out of form and you're under the microscope.
Girish says, so the best team in the tournament did not win, but what set apart the Aussies? Was it their tenacity, the freedom of playing without the pressure of being favourites? I think it was a combination of those things. I think they learnt as they went. They're a better team now than they were in that first match against South Africa, where they were, objectively speaking here, a bad T20 side. They went from the South Africa match to play England and were horrendous, and they've got better since then.
Adapt or die, right?
Yeah, they've got better role clarity. Players like Marsh know what they're doing. Warner rediscovering some form is crucial for them. Stoinis, Wade have chipped in at perfect times. Hazlewood's had probably about the best tournament you could expect him to have, given taking into account the history of Hazlewood as a T20 bowler. He has done about as well as he could have done, and bits have come together. There are fine margins in this, and that sort of leads on over to Twitter to another question. If you play, this is from Steve Box. If you played this World Cup 10 times, how many times would this lot win? I'm going one. This one, and that might be true, but that's the nature of knockout cricket.
Yeah, and nature of T20 cricket, right? We always talk about it. I've been to say it's such fine margins, and this is why the IPL sets up its semi-finals like it does, right? It has the eliminator. It has the first team has 2 bites of the cherry kind of thing. That's why they set it up in that way, because sometimes it is the toss of a coin that decides it.
Right, Ross, we're going to wrap up with one final question about the thing that is most important, of course.
You mean what's going on in the chat where I've been suggested that I should be the head of Punjab Kings next season?
If anyone can pull strings, get Ross in charge of the KL Rahul machine.
I'm backing myself to a better job than Anil Kumble's done the last couple of years at that franchise.
Then get in touch. The final question, I had it up, but I clicked flipping notifications, so it's gone. I can't remember who sent it. Someone asked a question. Chintan, here we go. Does this glorious Aussie win mean the psychological burden on England going into the Ashes is even bigger than it was thus far?
One, I think it was good that we've already shifted to the Ashes.
Yeah.
Immediately. Yeah.
We don't need to concentrate on this.
Yeah, we just straight into the Ashes. But I think it's. I'm not entirely sure, actually. I think you're very much on the 5-0 bandwagon, aren't you, Jack? In terms of going, we're going to get absolutely pumped.
There's some evidence for that.
Yeah, there is some evidence for it. But there is also a bit for me where the team that they've played, and this is the issue with the Australian setup anyway. They don't really distinguish between Test cricket, ODI cricket, T20 cricket. Their best players are their best players in every format.
They like a crisis as well. If anything, this tournament's an expert fucking example of how to manage a crisis. Create a huge crisis, and manage their way seamlessly to the best possible conclusion. But carry on.
Yeah, I mean, it's just good that Kane Richardson wasn't bloody bowling for these guys. But there's a bit for me of going. I do wonder if kind of bubble fatigue and all that kind of stuff, and the actual general physical fatigue of their pace bowlers. I know it's only 4 overs in T20 cricket, but it does take a toll, right? If that might be a bit of an advantage for England actually in the first test or two, and then we'll actually see. Can they actually sustain that level of fitness throughout and whatever, or will they start to take some of those injuries, etc. So it's always. England always have to go to Australia. It's always loads of pressure. Australia seemingly do well in most tournaments anyway. So we're kind of used to that pressure that they have to go and do it with. But unfortunately for us, we don't have Alistair Cook. We don't have Jonathan Trott. We don't have Ian Bell. We don't have Kevin Peterson. We've got Joe Root, and that's really about our batting.
Don't even have Don Sibley.
He's not even on the play. He's not even the A team.
Right,
he can't even fly the A team.
That's enough cricket podcast. We're going to get this under an hour if we finish now. Thank you very much for watching. If you're watching our live stream, hit like, hit subscribe, do nice things for us. If you're on an audio platform, do the same things on the audio platform. At the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Woodstock are our sponsors. Buy a new bat. We will be back. We're speaking to Mark Watt tomorrow. That's going to be exciting. We'll be back probably with one last episode about players of the tournament and all that shit. Bit much now. And that will be all good. Ross, any final words? You've got about 4 seconds.
Let's hope that that was as balanced and unbiased and a critique of the game rather than being some salty poms. So your poor potatoes might not have had as much salt as they did.
You've just taken us over an hour, you bastard. Bye-bye.